Yo, hold on a minute. I'm just making sure that this is live. I'm getting used to using this platform called Riverside, and there are some limitations to it. As much as I like it, it has some really cool features, which I'll talk about, but it doesn't let me customize the name of whatever I'm posting, whatever live streams I'm doing. So it says, welcome to our live show. That's what the title of this is, but that's not really the title of what the content's gonna be. So I'm just gonna update it before I get started. So bear with me for a sec. The title of this is reacting to Balaji, Karpathy, and Geohotz. I'm gonna be watching some really awesome talks with you guys and reacting to it. I think X is still kind of trying to perfect their live platform. Every time, like I just updated the title. Sorry, I'm doing this off screen, but I just updated the title and it didn't work. So they're still getting their tech figured out, I think. I'm gonna try it one more time. If it doesn't work, I will forget about it. I might have to switch away from using Riverside, but I hope I can get this to work. Okay, it does seem like it's working. Sorry, and I'm sorry. I know you can't really see anything right now. Just bear with me for a sec. I'm getting this all set up. I want people to know what they're tuning into. So, okay, now I'm going to share this broadcast just so that people can actually see what is being broadcast. I'll say live reacting to Balaji, Karpathy, and Geohotz. Okay, and I'm going to tell you why I'm doing this in a second, so hold on a minute. Okay, I'm posting this. All right. Let's see if this works. Okay, cool. I have a cool. So anyway, I did my best in setting that up. So one of the cool features of Riverside, which is what I'm using here, is that there's actually an audience participation feature. So what I can do is I have an invite link, and I'm going to post this as a reply to the posts on my X. Oh, I spelled conversation wrong. Oh well. Maybe you know what I'm just going to do this on this tab, but you can see, so I'm not just doing nothing. So here's, as you can see, this is like Inception, but here is the stream, and so I'm posting a comment or a reply to it, and so I'm gonna fix this typo. Conversation. So if anyone wants to join the conversation at any time, you can use Riverside to do this, which is really cool. Please try it out. I'd love to talk to you. But understandable if you don't want to, no problem. So anyway, why am I doing this? Well, I'm just gonna go back to this because I want to talk about this. I'm gonna line this up. But anyway, so what I'm doing is, this is just kind of a test run. So I'm gonna be reacting to some videos today. Let me share my other screen actually really quick. Stop sharing, share another source. Okay. So these are some of my favorite lectures that I've ever watched on YouTube. I think these are all really important. They put forward really important ideas. One of them is by Balaji, and this is very crypto related. It talks about how crypto is the next evolution for tech. And I think this is just really important for anyone in crypto to understand. So I want to go through this, and I want to expand upon the ideas that Balaji is talking about. Sometimes, people seeing him talk, he has all these ideas. He's very forward thinking. And what you really need to do is learn to pause and maybe don't take exactly what he's saying literally, and try and parse it to get at like what is the insight that he has. I mean, he's so forward thinking that it can be really hard to understand. So now that it's 11 years later, I think we can go back and we can really understand what he's saying. Although I will say I haven't actually watched this for a while, so this is going to be almost like watching it fresh. Then I want to talk about Andrej Karpathy's Talk Building Software 2.0. This is incredible. This is such an important concept. And this was before ChatGPT and before the AI boom. And this talks about his work at Tesla doing self-driving cars. And this is going to be, this is so important for crypto, for AI, for tech, for understanding like the current moment that we're in. So this is probably the best out of all of these talks. This is really mind-blowing stuff. And then Geohotz, who is the coolest person ever, I may or may not actually get to this one today, but this is another really cool talk with a really great idea. It's something that has like a lot of food for thought. This has ties into effective acceleration EAC, and this is before they did their stuff. So I might throw this in, but I think these two for people in crypto, which is most of my audience, these two are going to be the most important. And he has done a fair amount of contributions to crypto. So Geohotz is always cool to follow. So we'll see if we get to this, but let's do these two at least. These are so important. And so anyway, the reason I'm doing this is I'm noticing that in the sphere of crypto content there is a gap, and I don't see that my perspective is being basically advocated for. Like I don't know of anybody who's consistently saying stuff that comes from the way that I like to think about crypto and saying things that I agree with. So like maybe I can kind of talk about the crypto content landscape a little bit, and I want to try and show you where the hole is that I would like to fill in this space. So first of all, there's a lot of podcasts and content creators who do things like ecosystem updates, and they talk about like what is the latest feature coming to this protocol, or what is the recent company that fundraised and has a cool new project that's launching. These are really cool, and these are really important for people in the industry. But it's kind of I don't love this type of content, and I think that first of all, it's often I hate to say it, but it's kind of like too nice. It's talking to a lot of projects. It's a lot of PR type of stuff. It's like softball interviews and puff pieces and stuff. Where I mean, the fact of the matter is, this industry is built. There is an inner circle in this industry, let's say, and a lot of investors, they get into projects early, and this is a very profitable thing. And if you can get into a project early, you can reliably make a really great return on investing. So there kind of ends up being like this, a circle of people who all invest in each other's projects. They're all very friendly, and I think that this just has overall created a culture of not as much disagreement, not as much contrarianism as one would like. So a lot of people also have made money or aspire to make money by investing in tokens. And this is just not something that I'm interested in. I'm not interested in knowing what the next token is. I'm not interested in making 100x my money by finding the next investment. That's cool. I'm glad that people do that, but that is just not something that I aspire to do. I think that it's much more reliable to make money by simply doing work, and building a great business. So that's more of my speed. So for projects that are focused on what are the latest for content that's focused on like what's the latest projects in the ecosystem, what are the updates that these venture-backed companies are pushing out and stuff like that. What are this is good stuff. I'm not there's nothing wrong with it, but it's just not something that I'm particularly interested in, except when it directly affects my work in some particular segment of the crypto space. And so another type of content is very technical content where people make deep dives into architectural decisions and technical trade-offs, talking about whatever ZK proofs, MEV, stuff like that. This is again really cool. And I find it interesting insofar as it's explaining something that I need explained. But I don't think that this is broadly applicable to most people. I don't think that most people find this to be particularly entertaining. And another thing is I try not to go down too many rabbit holes in crypto because there's so many cool things to look into and to learn all about and learn about what the debates are on all these kind of like esoteric subjects. But it's really not a good use of someone's time. And I think not like I like to learn things when you need them, not in case you need them. So I like to basically see what do I want to do, what do I want to build in crypto, and then try to reverse engineer what needs to be learned in order to achieve that, and not just learn everything and then before getting started on something. And I definitely want to talk more about that philosophy later, but. Another thing about the technical content is it ends up missing a lot of the time the big picture. People get sucked into these debates, but it's not really getting tied into like why it makes a difference. And so what I want is not to be aware of everything going on in crypto, all the latest updates and new tokens and new projects and how it works and the engineering discussions about that. What I want is to kind of go to like a higher level discussion that talks about the implications of this technology from on a societal level. I think there's a lot to be said about how this technology will be transformative in impacting our lives, both in like a political way and in an economic way. And I just don't see that this is usually talked about. It's always much more in the weeds, and not bringing it to this higher level. I think there are some people who do talk about things from an ideological perspective. Like there are people who talk about libertarianism or some kind of revolutionary politics like socialism, and they try to equate that to crypto. And people talk about cypherpunks and DAC and EAC and effective altruism, and people do try to tie in crypto with that sometimes, but I'm not actually that interested in ideology. I'm more interested in just kind of like a positive, realist view on the impact of this technology on our lives in the future. And insofar as it's useful to learn about the technical side of this discussion, we can dive into the technical details. I am an engineer. I do work in crypto, so I can go deep on this, but that's not necessarily what is so interesting. I don't want to spend necessarily hours, parsing through all of these different technical discussions. And generally speaking, I don't think it's interesting to talk to or talk about like whatever the latest project in this ecosystem is, or whoever is popular and has raised money. That's not unless it's directly relevant to these other topics that I'm interested in. I don't want to particularly talk about it. And in general, I think I discourage people from investing actually in crypto. I don't think there's any value. I think most likely you're going to lose money, unless you're very sophisticated and you know what you're doing. Then by all means, go for it. That's great. I'm not in a position to tell you what to do, but I really I'm just so uninterested in the financial side of it. I think like DeFi is very interesting, but DeFi is interesting in the sense that it can finance some productive work that you do. And so I'm just really not going to go there. I'm going to be talking about the the effects on society that this technology has, the effects in our lives at a high level, and go into the technical details when applicable, and only talk about the financial side and token prices if it's relevant to that subject, which is not very often. So yeah, and just like one other note is first of all, I think I can refine the pitch for this podcast or whatever this is called, this live stream thing, over time. So I'll come up with a more concise and better way for explaining what I'm trying to do here. This was just some quick thoughts that I jotted down before starting this, but also yeah, I mean I also just really want to create a forum for challenging claims and ideas that people have in crypto, because honestly, that's just very, it's very interesting to me. Like I don't have any resentment or anything towards anybody when trying to like, foster debate and challenge people. I just like contentious conversations where people are arguing and debating. So I want to kind of challenge people and deep dive and basically do absolutely no circle jerk stuff, no puff pieces, no softball interviews. Just go and talk about these ideas that I find interesting, that I don't think a lot of people are talking about, and then challenge people and create as much intellectual conflict as possible, just because that's my personality and I like that stuff. So, okay, now I see there's some chat messages somewhere in something, but I don't know how to access this. Let's see. Sorry, because I want to respond to chat messages. Somebody said, hey. Hey, Frank. Someone named Frank has said, hey. Yes, I see it. Thank you for sending a message. I'll reply back. Oh, cool. Yeah, and if you want to join anytime, Frank, try to, I don't know exactly how you can join, but I know there's a way. So somewhere in the UI on this Riverside studio, you should be able to request to join. And no pressure, obviously, if you don't want to come and talk in front of people. Totally understand. No need, but I will keep an eye out if you say anything. Okay, cool. So I'm just gonna try to do this. I am not experienced at streaming, so this will be a test run, and I'm gonna keep trying to do this in the future more. So I think what I want to cover first, well, actually no, first what I want to cover is I want to just give a quick announcement. I will be participating in Celestia's upcoming hackathon. And so it's going to be really cool. Let's see what there is. There is going to be prizes. It doesn't say it here, but there is somewhere, there's prizes. Wait, can you see this? Oh, you can't see that. Okay. I think, I don't want to say the wrong amount of prize. Oh yeah, here, $250,000 of prizes. That's pretty cool. So obviously that usually, I don't know how they're distributing that. It usually doesn't go all to one person. That would be pretty cool, but you want to be able to have more people get prizes so more people come out ahead in the end. But that's a good amount of prizes. You're going to be able to do something in one of these three categories. I think these are all really awesome, but so I have created something called Chopin Framework, which I can go into really quick. This is a framework that allows you to use Next.js and other web frameworks, and what it does is it adapts a rollups architecture to a normal web app. So you can build a normal web app, but it uses under the hood rollups architecture to provide security and interoperability on the blockchain. So imagine instead of building a smart contract or building your own app chain, you're just building a web app in the normal way that you normally would. And our framework takes that, gives it security, gives it interoperability, and makes it a fully fledged blockchain app. That's really cool. So you'll be able to use this in the hackathon, and you'll be able to use this, and you'll be able to participate. And I will be creating tutorials, and I will be doing mentorship, and so I will help you with whatever you need. I want you to be successful. I can, intro you to investors if you're building with Chopin framework. I can do a lot to boost you, and so I'll be there every step of the way. So if you come and do one of the projects with Chopin framework, you'll have my full assistance. I will be there, and I want you to win. I really want you to win, and so yeah, I will. Yeah, so just stay tuned. This is going to be really, really cool. All right. So now that we've covered this announcement, I'm going to switch my tab that I'm sharing. Okay. Share screen. Okay. Now back to YouTube. So yeah, I have this playlist called Sources if you want to come and watch these videos. But for now, let's watch this talk by Balaji, and I will react to it.
Combinator. I guess you guys all know.
Okay.
I can talk about Y Combinator. I guess you guys all know about that. Let me introduce myself briefly while things are.
I'm assuming that the audio works. I tested it earlier, but if it doesn't work, please let me know. Just send me a message or something telling me that the audio doesn't work. And now I wonder if I can put on closed captions. Okay, just in case.
Loading here. So my name is Balaji Srinivasan. There's actually 12 people with my same first and last name in the Bay Area alone. In fact, I randomly ran into another one of them at Stanford and founded a genomics company with them. I go by my full initials BSS, and I am a Stanford lifer. I got my BS/MS PhD at Stanford, and in 2006, I started teaching computer science and statistics there. I left Stanford in early 2008, scandalizing the department to found a genomics company, which has become very successful. Our name is Council, and we test about 3% of all birds in the United States. I've also taught a MOOC at startup.stanford.edu, which has become quite successful. But I'm going to talk about something fairly different today. So can we go? Yes? Works?
Just pausing here for a sec. It's really cool that he has a bio background. I think that's very useful. Biology is it's a really cool subject that is about an emergent system that from like just at a high level, like you have all these chemical reactions at a lower level, like it's organic chemistry, and somehow oh wait, hold on. I just got a message. Frank said the invite link you shared appears to be for audience only. Either right click on my name to invite up to stage, or it's just a matter of different types of. Okay, let's see. I will try to right click on the name. Yeah, I want to get Frank in here. Show on stream, it says. Oh wait. Oh, cool. Okay, that's for his comment. Yeah, I gotta learn how to do this a bit better. People. There's people. Recording info. I should have really mastered this program before going live with it. But okay, I'm trying to get our audience participation here for anyone watching. Okay, I guess Frank says he'll just watch. I really apologize though, because I would actually love to talk to people. Oh wait, what's this? No. Oh man. Okay, well anyway, yeah, I guess I should just keep going through this content, but like, yeah, Frank, if you do somehow figure out what I should do, I can just share this tab. It doesn't even let me. Oh well, Sorry, Frank. I will. I promise I will figure this out some other time. And yeah, please come again. And yeah, so I guess we can't have audience participation this time. Okay, back to the video. Okay, so anyway, as I was saying, like you have organic chemistry, and so there's all these chemical reactions happening. And if you were trying to predict the emergent behavior of of life, of biology from organic chemistry, it would be next to impossible. I mean, you'd have to do so much computation. It would just be extremely difficult. And so, I mean, it's impossible. You can't just have these you can't just look at the actions of individual chemicals in the body and understand what's happening at the macro level. And that's the definition of a complex system. And other examples of complex systems are like the economy. And so this relates to crypto because crypto is basically a financial instrument that is really powerful and that you can use inside of a financial market, which is also a complex system. And so we're going to talk way more about this as we go, but I just want to call that out. And the other thing that's interesting is I really wonder what is Balaji's biggest career win. Like what was this company, like Balaji? I'm looking him up. He founded Council, and Council, like it doesn't. So like what? How much? So okay, I'm just looking this up. I mean, I don't want to change tabs, but maybe it'll save my space here. Counts a myriad. Wait, why is this myriad? This is different?
Denominator. I guess you got.
Let's see. Let's look this up really quick. Balaji Srinivasan. So he founded Council, which I guess has turned into Myriad. Myriad is let's see. Does it say Council on this page? Council. How do you spell Council? Okay. Okay, so Myriad acquired Council for $375 million. So I don't know if this is necessarily his biggest success. I mean, in healthcare, a $375 million valuation isn't that high. So I wonder, I wonder how that played out for him, or if he's made more money since then from being involved early with Coinbase or just other angel investments or anything like that. I definitely would be interested to know more about that. But I mean, this is cool. I think this kind of reminds me of Myriad is huge. They make a good amount of revenue, and yeah, I mean, this is actually pretty consequential. It reminds me of what was it? Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson made, who's the guy who does the blueprint and tries to live forever. Actually, I'm wearing this Brian Johnson shirt. I don't fully endorse his stuff, but this is a really cool shirt. But Brian Johnson founded Braintree, and then that acquired Venmo, and then it was acquired by PayPal. So I guess I'm kind of getting that reversed, but it's cool that like Venmo folded into Braintree, and then Braintree folded into PayPal. And so, by getting acquired and being an important asset early on, it's I don't know. It's cool. It's cool to have built something that goes, and then maybe Council itself wasn't the biggest success ever, but Myriad Genetics is really cool, and it seems to have been an important acquisition for them. So anyway, I'm a big fan of him. So let's get back to
Denominator. So I guess you have.
I'm trying.
Has become very successful. Our name is Council, and
okay.
But I'm going to talk about something fairly different today. So
right, fairly different.
Here we go. Yes, works. Okay. So what I'm going to talk about today is something I'm calling Silicon Valley's ultimate exit. And so as motivation here, it's a bit topical, is the USA the Microsoft of nations? We can take this sort of thing and we can expand it.
All right, let's see what's here. Okay, so he's saying the Constitution is a old code base. That's funny. It shuts down. The government shuts down for 2 weeks straight. So it's a system shutdown. There's security issues, and okay, this is Gaddafi, and I don't know, Saddam Hussein. So they're predatory, and okay. So these are like military industrial complex contractors. So he's saying, okay, so we have these enterprise customers that they're beholden to, and this is kind of blocked off here. I can't see what it says. Let's see. And yet world has blank, no choice but to buy it. Yeah, because we have a military. So that's funny. So yeah, Microsoft is a huge bureaucratic company. It's very old. There's a lot of issues. It's anti-competitive. There's anti-competitive concerns, and it's funny. Now with AI, maybe you could even look at this through a whole nother lens. And yeah, enterprise customers, and yeah, I mean, but yet you can complain about Microsoft all you want, but all the companies buy it. So that's a pretty good analogy, I would say.
Code base is 230 years old, written in an obfuscated language. System was shut down for 2 weeks straight. Systematic FUD on security issues. Fairly ruthless treatment of key suppliers. Generally favors its rich enterprise customers, but we still have to buy it. And if we think about Microsoft itself, there's a great quote from Bill Gates in 1998. What displaced Microsoft? What did he fear? It wasn't Oracle or anybody like that. What he feared were some guys in a garage, who happened to be ultimately we found it was Larry and Sergey back in 1998.
That's interesting. That putting Google as the Microsoft killer. I'm not sure that I see how that ever was true. I mean, Microsoft was not that much into search compared to their other lines of business. Google has not really beat it out. I mean, I'm not sure. And especially now, it's interesting that Microsoft is actually coming and killing Google. It's cool to see, how Satya played his hand with OpenAI and came out and basically strategically ate away at Google's search revenue by in Bing with its integration with ChatGPT and just putting ChatGPT at the forefront. It's interesting that he's saying that's who Microsoft feared. The other thing I would say is, so this is called, I think, the Innovator's Dilemma, or something like that. Maybe he'll talk about it, but basically, a company needs to disrupt themselves. Like you have something that's a cash cow, and it's so profitable. It's actually hard to do anything different, because really what you want to do is you want to milk this for everything that it's worth. But what happens is at some point, somebody is going to come along and have a step change, and have a far more innovative way of doing something that completely replaces this old system. And the thing is even if you know about this possible thing that could be better, it's really hard to go out and do that. If you're the leading company, it's really hard to go out and actually do this better thing, because first of all, you don't necessarily know if it's going to work or if it's actually better. Because what you're doing is you're giving up on the amazing amount of revenue that you're currently enjoying, even though it's not going to last. And to actually make that choice and take that short-term sacrifice of potentially losing revenue in order to stay competitive is a very difficult thing to do. And so I'll just give you one quick example that's more modern than this. With AI, Google, they have a certain cost per click, and cost per search. And so they have ad revenue, and they make a certain amount of profit on each Google search because there's ads and then there's a cost. And unfortunately for them, AI is way better. I mean, we all know this. But the thing is, it's way, 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 way more expensive. So let's assume that they are still able to make a profit. I'm not even saying that they're going to lose money with AI based search as opposed to their old PageRank system. I'm not saying they're going to lose money, but what I'm saying is even if they just make less money, that's a huge like that's a huge sacrifice for them because they have this $100 billion plus cash cow, which is the current search. And it's like they know that the AI companies like Perplexity and ChatGPT are on their heels. They're making a better product. It's going to take over at some point. But how do you flip that switch and make Gemini do all the results for Google instead of the classical Google search? I mean, in doing that, you're basically you're just plummeting your profit. You're sending it to the floor. I mean, it's just it would be catastrophic. So there's a lot of shareholders that are going to be very unhappy with that. And I mean, you're leaving money on the table. But then at the same time, you have to do it because at some point it's going to really matter. And so basically, Google is trying to balance this, like walk this tightrope. And that's why you see some Gemini results in the search, but you still see the other search, and they're not doing everything with AI. I mean, because it's not ready, so that also makes sense. But it's not just so simple like, oh, this is better technology, therefore let's do it. They have to realize that they're the custodian over a cash cow business, and as Peter Thiel says, like they're not really a technology company anymore. I mean, they're kind of a bet against the change in search, and they're more of like a financial instrument that is like shorting innovation in search because they have this cash flow, they have a lot of money in the bank, they have a lot of capital, and as long they're going to win as long as nobody makes a way better search engine. Unfortunately for them, people are making a way better search engine, and that's just the reality. So let's see if they're going to be able to navigate this. I mean, it's definitely not clear. All right. Anyway, maybe he might say some of this. So I went 2x on the part where he was saying the thing I had just said, just because there's no point of dragging that out. So let's keep watching.
And the thing about what Larry and Sergey did is there's no way that they could have reformed Microsoft from the inside. At that time, Microsoft already had 6001 and trying to push for 20% time or free lunches. They probably wouldn't have gone too far. So what they had to do was start the company. They had to exit. With success in that alternative, then Microsoft would imitate them. And this actually relates to a fundamental concept of political science, the concept of voice versus exit. If a company or a country is in decline, you can try.
Sorry, I just wanted to actually pause here for a sec. I think the reason why he was putting Google against Microsoft and framing that competition was because not that they necessarily go head to head too often, and like their markets are very distinct, but there is just a finite amount of talent, of engineering talent. And so there's a battle, and this is why he was talking about all these benefits, like 20% time, and I mean I don't know if that's a benefit, but it's an interesting practice. But free lunches and stuff like that. Like has been at least for a long time, and continues to be a very big battle for engineering talent, and this is actually the bottleneck on innovation. And there is like definitely a lot of other bottlenecks and a lot of other things that get in the way, like bureaucracy, for example, makes these companies don't use the talent as well as they could. But talent ultimately is the bottleneck. For example, I remember watching an interview with Elon many years ago, and people were saying, "Oh, why don't you make an electric jet or something like that?" And he said, "Yeah, we could do that, but the issue is not money." People said, "Oh, well, I think you could make a lot of money doing this." He said the issue is not money. The issue is just there's just not enough engineers at SpaceX or Tesla to do this and the other things that they're doing. And so since they don't really care to make an electric jet as much as their other priorities, like they just simply don't have enough people. It doesn't matter. You could have $1 trillion. Okay, what are you going to do with it? Give it to some stupid person who doesn't know how to do engineering? There's only so many engineers out there that are able to, work on these projects. And so that's the bottleneck, and that is the sense in which all tech companies are competing. And so, yeah, it's a really important, thing. I'll try and I'll go on one more tangent. Sorry, I like going on tangents. I'm like Balaji in that way. I like to go on tangents. I think this is like one thing that people don't understand, like about like the COVID lockdowns. That is so unbelievably destructive, because what happened was a bunch of labor did not take place during that time. Like, we are going to have to feel that effect in the normal. Like, let's say there was a timeline without COVID, there would be people who like we're working that whole time and making progress and on all these things, and instead we shut it down. We shut down the entire economy. I mean, not the entire economy, but a bunch of it, and we interrupted so many things. Like, we're going to have to pay for that going forward. And it's kind of like when you start compounding at age 22 and then you retire at 65. You can look at, oh, you put in $100 here and now it's worth whatever, some huge amount at retirement, like 100,000, $1 million or whatever. I mean, you have to run the numbers, but the point is it really hurts you to shut down people's productive work. That's the limiting factor on growth and prosperity. And so these things are super consequential. And as another example of that, like, people focus so much on like the effect of tax rates in the economy. Oh, it disincentivizes behavior and this and that. I don't agree with that very much. I think taxes can be bad, especially very high taxes. They can very much disincentivize work. They can just be unfair in general. It's definitely true. But the worst thing is government spending, because government spending, what it does is it creates an incentive for a productive person who's smart to not do something that's contributing and instead just work for the government. Like, if there's a government contract that just is asking for something that we don't really need and it's kind of easy to do and they pay a bit more than they should, that is going to be something that an ambitious person is incentivized to just take advantage of. And it can actually be more lucrative to do than private sector work. And so when you tax people, fine, maybe they'll work less, maybe they won't. But I mean, at the end of the day, like, oh, what the difference of 5% here and there, like of your money, like, is that going to change your behavior much? Probably not that much. But when you take whatever, and a marginal 5% extra from every single person, and then you make all these programs that pay it out with basically no, like with no standards, and basically it's just like a cash cow that someone can manipulate, then you get these smart people that systematically go and exploit this, and they waste their talents on, instead of contributing to society and working, building productive things and innovating, they go and they just do stupid government work. And then we're all poorer as a result of it. So anyway, let's keep watching. Let's go back here, because voice versus exit is a very important concept. So let's keep watching.
Alternative, then Microsoft would imitate them. And this is actually related to a fundamental concept in political science, the concept of voice versus exit. If a company or a country is in decline, you can try voice or you can try exit. Voice is basically changing the system from within, whereas exit is leaving to create a new system, a new startup, or to join a competitor sometimes. Loyalty can modulate this. Sometimes that's patriotism, which is voluntary, and sometimes it's lock-in, which are involuntary barriers to exit. And we can think about this in the context of various examples and start to get a feel for this. So, voice in the context of open source would be a patch, exit would be a fork. Voice in the context of a customer would be a complaint form, whereas exit would be taking your business elsewhere. Voice in the context of a company, that's a turnaround plan. Exit is leaving to found a startup. And voice in the context of a country is voting, while exit is immigration. So up there are those two images. On the left is the normal Rockwell painting on voice. On the right is actually my dad in the center, and that's kind of a grass hut on the right-hand side. So you grew up.
So this is really cool. So first of all, there's a lot to say here. So first of all, what you're going to kind of see as this talk goes on is that there's a double entendre here. This is very creative. So there's this concept. This is a book, an actual book here, and I have not read it, but this is a well-known concept in political science: voice versus exit. This is not something he made up. This is a real thing. And there's also this concept in startups called an exit, which is it's when you get the money, the return on your investment. So for example, you have an early stage startup. This is what you do in Silicon Valley. So this is Silicon Valley's ultimate exit. You invest in a startup, and there's a Series A round, Series B round, and then there's an IPO at some point. Or in crypto, there is a token, a generation event, whatever you call that. And there's the tokens created, and it's put on the public markets. And that is called an exit, because now you were kind of trapped in your investment. You couldn't have withdrawn your money from that. But now you have an exit where you can actually go and sell that investment. And usually, if all is good, the implication when you say an exit, it's that it's a profitable exit. So that's when you go and make those venture scale returns that everyone loves. So this is some exit is on the mind of the people at Y Combinator that he's talking to. It's Silicon Valley's ultimate exit. He's touching on this idea of an exit, but he's also talking about a different type of exit. And he's going to kind of intertwine these ideas, which is going to be really cool. But let's just for a second, go back to what is on the screen here, this visualization. So there's these two columns. There's voice and exit. So he's now applying this political philosophy to a company. And so he's saying, if you're putting in, or maybe you could, an open source, maybe this is a company and or a coding project, maybe an open source code project. But let's just assume that it's a company though. I can go with the company analogy. So the voice is you are going to this code base for your company and you're making a contribution. And so you are taking your version of the software, you're changing the code, and then you're merging it back in, like using GitHub or something. And when you do that, you don't just get to, as a developer at the company, you don't just get to write whatever you want and merge it, usually. There's a process, because the company needs to decide what features it wants to support. The engineering team needs to decide what are the standards by which we would accept a contribution if you don't write any tests. If there's glitches, you need to have QA, you need to have the product alignment to make sure this is what people wanted. So there is this consensus building exercise that happens internally in a company. And this is the hard part of running a company, is you're basically trying to dictate to engineers to build something. You have to come to consensus about what they would build, and then you have to come to consensus about if they did a good job, and if you merge it and use their work and to contribute it into the product. And there is another way. There's actually another way of handling this, which is you could theoretically fork something. So a fork, it's a similar process where you make a change to product or code base, but with a fork, you don't actually have to come to consensus on it. So you as a developer, let's take an open source project as an example, like cal.com, cal.com, the Calendly competitor, right? It's open source. So you could work for them and do their pull requests and get paid by them, all of that, but you'd have to do what they want. If you fork their code base, you could have your own calendar and you don't even have to talk to them. So there's a sense in which that voice is the normal software development process for creating a product. And this is what happens inside of any single business. And then forking is the alternative to that. That's the exit. And forking it allows you, if it's open source, if you have the ability to fork it, you could fork something, make a change to it. It may not be integrated in the same way as the original application that you forked, but you could technically replicate that software and do it however you want without coming to consensus over it. So if you can't agree, voice doesn't work, you voice your opinion, you say we should have this feature, we should do it this way, you try to voice it, you can't come to agreement, then you fork. So that's kind of how he's trying to bring this political framework into the sphere of companies and software development. And so that this is he's mapping these different concepts onto from the political to the software. So let's just go down this list. So open source, got it. So patch, voice, fork, exit. Customer, a complaint form. So this again is like it's you're trying to like survey customers, you're talking to customers, and it's like you have to kind of gather the information and compile it, and then like what's what product managers do. They do customer surveys, they understand how happy is the customer, and then they try to figure out what exactly what exactly do we need to build here. And then from the customer perspective, like if you're a customer at a company, you can try and explain to them this is not good, or you can just go elsewhere. Like for example, I'm using Riverside FM right now to do this. I like some of the features Riverside FM has. That's why I chose to do it on here. But I wanted to bring on somebody on the stream and it didn't let me. And the UI was not good. And there's other limitations that I don't like about this. So I could send them an email or whatever, go to their contact us and decide I'm going to let them know about this and try and get them to change it. And maybe that's my best bet because they do have some features that I really like and I don't think anyone else does. So I might do that, but I also honestly, I don't have faith that they're going to do that in a timely manner. So I probably will exit unless I can just come up with a solution. I'm probably going to exit and take my business elsewhere. I could use OBS, whatever that stands for, Open Broadcast something, the open source streaming software. I could use that. I could have some other, put together some other services, a combination of services that has the same feature sets. So I could do that. That's exit. So as a customer, you can either try and convince them to do what you want, or you can exit. And then so within a company, again, like if I worked at Riverside and I thought we need to make the audience mode better, I could advocate for that internally within the company. And I could maybe point to this customer form that was filled out and say, look, they requested it, we should prioritize this. But if they don't want to do it, I might just say, you know what, I'm going to make an audience mode streaming service and it's going to be really good. And I could just go do that. I could leave to found a startup. And then of course, this is the more classic thinking on it. It's you either vote like in an election or you leave. So this is really common within the United States because each state you can move between the different states and it's very seamless. And so each state has its own government. So if I'm in California, I might say the taxes here are too high. And that's like, okay, so but other people don't agree. So I might say, you know what, I'm going to move to Nevada where there's lower taxes. So I will exit because nobody listened to me. But maybe I'm not willing to do that. And there's just there's a higher barrier to entry because my family is here in California. So I might balance that and I might try to use my voice and I might have that threat of the exit. Like they don't want everyone to exit California. If they made 100% tax rate, maybe most people would. But right now it's, at this point where it's high, but it's not too high. And so the kind of the combination of voice and exit gets us to some kind of equilibrium. So anyway, let's just keep watching because he has a lot of insights to share.
On a dirt floor in India and left because India was in a way that he could have voted to change things within his lifetime. So he left. And a lot about voice in the context of democracy. That's very important, but we're not just a nation of immigrants, we're a nation of immigrants. We're shaped by both voice and exit. Starting with the Puritans, they fled religious persecution. American revolutionaries, which left England's orbit. Then we started moving west, leaving the East Coast bureaucracy to the Western. Later, late 1800s. And sometimes that's at the end of Saigon. And it's not just the US that's shaped by exit. Silicon Valley itself is also shaped by exit. You can date it back to the founding of Fairchild Semiconductor with the Traitorous Eight and the founding of Fairchild. The fact that non-competes are not enforceable in California. And the fact that VC funds disruption, not just turnaround. The concept of forking in open source if you think about the back button, that is in some ways one of the cheapest ways to exit something. And of course, the concept of a startup itself. That right there, if you guys haven't seen, is one of Y Combinator's first ads. Larry and Sergey won't respect you in the morning. So the concept here is that exit is actually an extremely important force in complement to voice. And it's something which is something that gives voice its strength. So in particular, it protects minority rights. In the upper left corner, for example, you can imagine two.
I just want to go back to something that he said. I thought it was very interesting. Let me just go back here for a sec.
And the fact that VC funds disruption, not just turnaround. The
Actually,
concept of forking.
Let's really quickly just look at what this is saying, because he just flashed this on the screen really quick. Silicon Valley is shaped by exit. Yeah, he's basically saying like that VCs will fund disruption. I think that's a really important thing. And he talked about this dynamic of forking that we talked about with Git on the last slide. This is what part I want to talk about, the back button. I don't know anything about this traitorous 8. I've heard of mention of it maybe, but I'm not sure. So, okay, let's just go through this really quick. I want to skip ahead to, let's skip ahead to this one. What's really cool is if you think about companies like Google or Apple or whatever, just the best company, Amazon. These companies are so well run. I mean, you can criticize them, but like, let's be honest. Like, are you of the caliber of talent that could come in there and completely turn things around? Would they hire you? Would you pass the interview, right? I mean, you might very well could. I'm not trying to doubt you, but the point is most people aren't. These are some talented, smart people running these companies. These are like the adults in the industry. These are people who are experienced. You're not just getting some 22-year-old new grad coming and being in charge of a department at one of these top companies. Like, you have to work your way up. You have to really have a track record of exceptional. You don't have to necessarily work your way up through the company. Like, you can come in having demonstrated exceptional ability elsewhere and then come in at a high level. It's possible. But you really need to have proven yourself to run these companies. So like, just take Google, like the people at the top are very, 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 very smart, very competent, very hardworking, exceptional. Yet, and you might even argue they're the best in the world. But here's the thing, they can only do so much. They're limited in what they can do. They have to work with the projects that they work with. They have this cash cow that we talked about, this search, this non-innovative search, and they're managing this program. It's very hard. There's a lot of infrastructure and moving pieces, a lot of employees to keep the lights on, and there's just a lot that they have to do. It's very difficult. They are the best, but they only have so much attention and time, and they only have what they can do. And so what venture capital does is venture capital basically pools a bunch of money from a bunch of institutions that want to get in on this asset class. So they have a giant fund. And if you just took a venture capital fund like Sequoia, some big name, and they said, you know what, we got a lot of money, we're gonna beat Google. And they just said, we're gonna put all this entire fund towards beating Google. That would be a really bad idea, because they would almost certainly lose. Because first of all, Google has a giant treasure chest or whatever you call that themselves. They have hundreds of, I don't even know, like so much money, so much cash. They can't deploy it. So that wouldn't even be an advantage. But there's just no way that a giant fund like Sequoia, although they are extremely smart people, there's nothing to take away from them, that they would be able to actually come up with a better system, build it from scratch, deploy it, and actually realistically have a chance of displacing Google. It's just not possible. So what do they do instead? What they do is they do a stochastic deployment method, where they almost do it's like a search problem. And we're going to talk more about search problems when we talk about the Andrej Karpathy video, but they're basically doing a search problem for the disruption. So they get a bunch of kids, smart kids, not dumb kids, smart kids, the best kids they can find. And they just give them $1 million here, $1 million there. They just do this a bunch of times. And what those kids are supposed to do is they're not the smartest ones. They can't, these founders name the best 22-year-old founder funded by the best venture capitalists. Get them all in a room. None of them, not even George himself, who is a complete wunderkind, would be running shit at Google. Even though he was jailbreaking iPhones, doing crazy stuff, he was probably better than some of their engineers. At 16, he was probably better than a lot of their level, whatever, some high level of engineer there. And yet he wouldn't be running stuff because he was just not mature enough. He doesn't know his stuff enough. But what venture capitalists do is they take their money, they get a giant fund, they know that this is going to be diversified, and then they just give kids some money. And what the kids do is they have some idea. Nobody really cares what the idea is because it's probably wrong because they don't know anything. But they're smart and they're hardworking. And there is a chance that if you get an army of kids that are smart and hardworking, that are diligent, and to just try something, it doesn't work, try something else, it doesn't work, try something else. If you just keep doing that, eventually one of them is going to actually come up with something that can beat Google. And this is kind of like this argument of like how many toddlers could you beat in a fight or something. Like obviously you're fighting children, you can punch them easily and beat them, but is there a number where you get tired and maybe they could beat you? I mean, I think it's possible that maybe there's like a toddler is like so weak it's not even capable of hurting you, so maybe that's not a good example. But like, like how many, like sorry, I'm not trying to be sexist, but like how many women would a man beat? Obviously men generally are better at fighting than women, but I mean, if there's a certain number of women, like, yeah, they could beat up a man for sure. Even like a good fighting man. And just like to be clear, like I do like martial arts and stuff, so I'm aware of like the dynamics of fighting and strength differences and stuff. So the point is that how many like smart kids does it take to beat the best operators and engineers in the world? There is a number, and the idea. One of the ideas behind venture capital is that you just take a lot of money, you take a lot of shots on goal, you expect a lot of these to not work out, but then there are going to be some that are going to strike gold. And it's not like it's important to differentiate in your mind between the specific example and the process. It's like missing the forest for the trees. Like you don't, like if you see like someone who's like founded a business, don't over exaggerate like how impressive that is necessarily. I mean, it's impressive because you have to be smart, you have to be hardworking in order to be successful, but there's also a cohort and they're part of a cohort, and there is randomness involved in this process. And so if you're just looking at the winners, it's because a lot of things lined up for them to win. And if you just copy someone who is successful, what's the issue with that is that you're assuming that that's what got them there, and not the fact that there was a distribution of outcomes. And this is a tail event, and they are at the right tail of the distribution. So anyway, let's continue on. Okay, yeah, one other thing I wanted to say about this, I won't go too deep on this slide, is this back button thing. This is very interesting. So this is exiting from an app. So to switch between websites is incredibly easy. There's like no burden to go to one website or to leave that website, go to another website. This is an incredibly competitive market. Like there's no friction in this market. And this is why the web has been such an incredible thing, because there's been so much competition, and it's been a competition for people's attention, and the cost of switching has been so low. So it's not like people get locked into a certain website. I mean, that's why websites try to get like moats and like network effects to keep people coming back. But there's nothing technical about about websites that keeps people using the same one. And so anyway, I think that's a really important thing. We're going to revisit that later.
The fact that VC funds disruption, not just turnaround. You know, the concept of forking in open source, you know, if you think about the back button, that is in some ways one of the cheapest ways to exit something. And of course, the concept of a startup itself. That right there, if you guys haven't seen, is one of Y Combinator's ads. Larry and Sergey won't respect you in the morning. So the concept here is that exit is actually an extremely important.
I don't even know what that means. Larry and Sergey won't. Those are the founders of Google, but I don't know what he means by that. They won't respect you in the morning.
Force in complement to voice. And it's something which is something that gives voice its strength. So in particular, it protects minority rights. In the upper left corner, for example, you can imagine two countries, and country one is following policy A and country two following policy B. Some minority, you know, is potentially interested in following policy B, but A is very stridently, you know, promulgated by the majority. However, there's some other country, maybe a smaller country, maybe another country that's actually quite into B. And so that person leaves. And, you know, they're not necessarily super into B, but they think it might be interesting, thus B question mark. And what happens is that all the other guys in A see that people are actually leaving. They really care about this particular policy so much that they actually left. It could be a feature where people are leaving for a competitor. It could be a bug that you haven't fixed, so people fork the project and take it somewhere else. What happens is exit amplifies voice, right? So it's a crucial additional feature for democracy is to reduce the barrier to exit, to make democratic voice more powerful, more successful.
So like one way you think about this is like in a negotiation, you are talking about the terms. You say, I want this. They say, no, I want that. And so there's a tension there. But really walking away from the negotiation is what gives you the leverage, because if I want to be paid a certain amount, but I know that you will walk away if I demand that, if you're not willing to do it, then I'm going to go, you know, as low as I can with before I walk away. Like there's going to be somewhere in between that we try to make a deal there. And so, for example, like let's say that you have two job offers instead of just one. You can now leverage those as long as you want to work at both of those companies. You can say, hey, I have this job offer, increase my pay or whatever. And you can use that because you have that ability to exit. That's the threat that makes your voice heard. I think without going into too many rabbit holes on this, notice though that he was talking about, like, I'll just go back here for a second. Where is this? Yeah, here we go. They're saying that, okay, so now there's this threat of this guy B going over to country two. Now the issue is when it's really hard to go from country A to country B in the context of countries. So if I want to go from the United States to China, for example, that could be quite difficult from an immigration standpoint. There's a lot of complications. Just moving itself is very hard. So there's a lot of friction. And this is really, so this basically makes competition between countries much less effective than, for example, competition between states. Going from California to Nevada, it's still hard because I have to move. There's downsides to being in Nevada as opposed to California, but it's legally easy. It's just whatever, you just go. Like, you don't have to register or anything. So the EU has this internally within the EU, and this creates a very good dynamic. And you look, and usually state taxes are not that high. Usually, states are much more responsive to changing legislation and fixing bad policies in the federal government, which basically never makes anything better. States do reform. And so it's a good example. But the one thing I wanted to kind of tie this back to earlier was talking about the back button. And like on the web, there's no friction between switching websites. And so remember what I was saying about the process. Don't look at the example, look at the process of how you got that example. So you have a really good founder. Instead of copying their productivity tips and all of this, which could be valuable, don't get me wrong, but realize that they were there was a system that funded a series of founders and selected the ones that happened to be doing the right thing at the right time. And so the lesson is to have many shots on goal, not to have like the specific use like Notion for your productivity, because this one founder does that. So now taking that to take that framework of thinking and now apply this to the web. And the web is a system, a very competitive system where the cost of exit is very low. And you still have voice. Like, it's a communications platform. The internet's a communications platform. So you have voice and you have exit. And the reason why the web, like right now, we're on the web. And you're spending your time on the web right now. That's how valuable it is. You work on the web. You do everything on the web. Why is the web eating everything? Why is everything through this protocol? Because going through us, it has this really powerful system that balances voice and exit, and that has competition that creates the best services. So anyway, we'll get more into that later, but like let's just keep watching.
Smaller country, maybe another country that's actually quite into B, and so that person leaves. And they're not necessarily super into B, but they think it might be interesting, thus B question mark. And what happens is that all the other guys in A see that people are actually leaving. They really care about this particular policy so much that they actually left. It could be a feature where people are leaving for a competitor. It could be a bug that you haven't fixed, so people fork the project and take it somewhere else. What happens is exit amplifies voice, right? So it's a crucial additional feature for democracy is to reduce the barrier to exit, to make democratic voice more.
So he's still like trying to connect these ideas of a company and a country, the politics and business. They're very related. This is very important. And like, we'll kind of get more into the theory of it later, but these are both complex systems. And as the company grows, it becomes more complex and it becomes harder to manage. And so, but it's just super cool how he just really hammers home this analogy. And he's talking about, like, we're just talking about countries. Countries have voice and exit, but now he's talking about customers leaving. And so if you hear someone say, I want a blue button on the website, you might disregard that. You think that's dumb, whatever. We'll get to it eventually, a blue button. But then if people are leaving for another competitor with a blue button because of the blue button, or that they're going to just not use your service because they only like looking at blue buttons. It's a bad example, but you get my point. You're going to change that. So it amplifies the exit, the threat of exit amplifies the voice.
Powerful, more successful. And so a voice gains much more attention when people are leaving in droves. And, if I would bet that exit is a reason why half this audience is alive. Many of us have our ancestors who came from, China, Vietnam, Korea, Iran, places where there's war or famine, economic basket cases. Exit is something that I believe we need to preserve, and exit is what this talk is about. So exit is...
We're over an hour in, and he's just told us what the talk is about. So, I mean, and it's not his fault. This is 7 minutes in on this, but I've been going on quite a bit.
It's really a meta concept. It's about alternatives. It's a meta concept that subsumes competition, forking, founding, and physical immigration. It means giving people the tools to reduce influence of bad policies over their lives without getting involved in politics, the tools to peacefully opt out. And if you combine those three things, this concept of the US as a Microsoft of nations, the quote from Gates and Hirschman's treatise, you get this concept of Silicon Valley's ultimate exit.
Okay, he's going to talk about the important concept in this talk, but like going back to his analogy of Microsoft being the United States, and we're talking about how all these new competitors are kind of coming up and potentially displacing incumbents. Like, all these different people can try different things, and they can eventually cannibalize the market that Microsoft is serving. And so potentially the United States could be in a similar position where it is susceptible to up-and-comers. And the ability to exit could play a role in how that plays out.
Basically, I believe that the ability to reduce the importance of decisions made in DC in particular, without lobbying or sloganeering, it's actually going to become extremely important over the next 10 years. And you might ask, why? What does this have to do with anything? Why today Silicon Valley, what I call, there's 4 cities that used to run the United States in the post-war era. Okay, Boston, higher ed. New York City with Madison Avenue, books, Wall Street, newspapers. Los Angeles with movies, music, Hollywood, and of course DC with laws and regulations formally running the country. And so I called them the paper belt after the Rust Belt of yore. And in the last 20 years, a new competitor to the paper belt arose out of nowhere, Silicon Valley. And by accident, we're putting a horse head in all of their beds. Right? We are becoming stronger than all of them combined. And in the sense of this,
Okay, there's an interesting parallel between everything mentioned in this last slide. So, of course, DC is nominally in charge of not just nominally, like actually in charge of the. Well, you could. Okay, we can parse that language, but DC is running the show. That's where the government is located in the United States. But all of these other cities, Boston, which has higher ed. I mean, everywhere has higher ed, but it's symbolic of higher ed. So these power centers, we'll say, higher education, the universities, then kind of like you can kind of say like, this is a lot of different things. I mean, Wall Street is a little bit distinctive, so let's just count that out for a sec. But like newspapers, fashion, which is Madison Avenue, books. So this is like information. Like to some extent, books is like education, just like it's going on in Boston. Madison Avenue is culture, which is like another form of information, and newspapers is news, which is information. And LA, which is another form of information. This is a lot of culture shaping. This is music and movies and TV too. I think he didn't write TV, but if you look at this, like this is education and fashion and books and culture. Like this is information. This is not manufacturing. This is not automobiles and airplanes and trains and steel. This is information, and information. You can kind of like, we should dive into this another time, but you can look at how the flow of information has been very important for how society has developed, and like the printing press was very influential, and now the internet's becoming very influential. We should definitely talk more about that, but this is how we used to communicate as a society, through books, through culture, through movies, and this was like the locus was the universities, which are kind of like the hubs that led this kind of disinformation system. And then what happened is the internet came along, and it actually came out of the universities, and it was a step change. It was not just like a little bit better. Like this is the kind of thing where we're talking about Google benefiting from no innovation in search, right? These legacy establishment power centers were benefiting from no innovation in information flow or information transmission, because they had the paper that was shipped around the company, and they were the ones controlling the infrastructure that manufactured this, and therefore had the editorial control over it, et cetera. And they were the incumbent, and this is what has propped up DC. DC basically owns the stack. And if you think about them as Microsoft, right? What's happened is a new startup has come across this thing called the internet, which is not, to say 10x better is an understatement. It's like a million x better for information transmission. And now he's positioning Silicon Valley as something that's going to overtake this old power center, and we can dive into. We got to like go and talk more about like Mike Benz's work and stuff like this, about how there's a whole censorship regime and anti-tech regime all coming at coming on behalf of these legacy power centers that Balaji had laid out 11 years ago. And they are attacking Silicon Valley and attacking crypto, which is, he's going to point out the exit of Silicon Valley's ultimate exit. So you don't separate in your mind crypto and Silicon Valley. These are the same thing. But anyway, let's just keep watching. I just wanted to point out that this is all about information flow, and never bet against the free flow of information.
Wall Street, newspapers. Los Angeles with movies, music, Hollywood. And of course, DC with laws and regulations formally running the country. And so I called them the paper belt after the Rust Belt of yore. And in the last 20 years, a new competitor to the paper belt arose out of nowhere, Silicon Valley. And by accident, we're putting a horse head in all of their beds. Right? We are becoming stronger than all of them combined. And to get a sense of this, Silicon Valley is reinventing every industry in these cities. That X up there is supposed to be a screenplay for, the paper of LA. And LA is going to iTunes, BitTorrent, Netflix, Spotify, YouTube. That was really the first on the hit list, starting in '99 with Napster. New York, right alongside AdWords, Twitter, Blogger, Facebook.
I wanted to say, on a personal note, the thing that radicalized me to be extremely pro whatever, cypherpunk, like pro crypto, pro privacy, libertarian, all these things, was that when I was young, I wanted to listen to certain music, and I didn't want to, like, I didn't have any money. I didn't want to buy it, and downloading it was illegal, and it just pissed me off. Honestly, that has always been my pet peeve. I'm a big hater of intellectual property. I think it's really a destructive thing. But anyway, let's keep watching.
Facebook, Kindle, Aereo. We're going after newspapers. We're going after Madison Avenue. We're going after book publishing. We're going after television. Aereo figured out how to put a solid state antenna in a server farm so they don't have to pay any TV there. Recently, Boston was next in the gun sites. Khan Academy, Coursera, Udacity. And most interestingly, DC. And by DC, I'm using it as a metonym for just government regulation in general, because it's not just DC, it includes local and state governments. Uber, Airbnb, Stripe, Square, and of course, the big one, are all things that threaten DC's power. It is not necessarily clear that the US government can ban something that it wants to ban anymore.
Okay, we got to Bitcoin. Now crypto is mentioned. Now it's going to start to get interesting. But I'm losing steam. So this is a cliffhanger. You really want to know what's next. You could even go and finish watching this yourself. We're at 9 minutes and 32 seconds. It's called Balaji Srinivasan at Startup School 2013. You can look at it yourself, but you won't have my commentary and insight. So next time I'm going to pick up where we left off, and it's about to get really interesting. So yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. This was great, super fun. I got to build up my streaming endurance. I want to make sure that I'm giving you guys the top tier commentary. And yeah, we have a lot to cover, and it's going to be very interesting. So see you guys. I will probably stream again on Friday. Yeah, so see ya.